that came from Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood Board of Directors in 1980 voted to start ETR publishing. They'll deny it, but they did. It totally contradicts the Texas Education Code, and they're getting away with it. And it contradicts Catholic teaching. So let's talk about birth rates for a second before we dive into the curriculum. And the reason for that is because this side over here will talk about it a lot. You will see San Antonio Express News quoting, Texas Freedom Network last year came out with their report, and abstinence education in Texas is failing. Come on, Texas, get with the program. And everybody who reads it believes it and says, well, we're failing our teens. We need to do something. Of course we should have comprehensive sex education. Abstinence isn't working. Well, the numbers actually don't say that. The numbers say that abstinence education does work. Comprehensive sex education fails. And I'm going to show some of those that data to you tonight. Think about this for a second. We're a pro-life state. Would anybody disagree with that? We have strong pro-life laws. They could be stronger, but we have worked real hard to have strong pro-life laws. And there are other states that do that as well. And then there are states that are not pro-life, like New York, for example, very pro-abortion, anti-life, right? So would it surprise you to know that Texas teens give birth more often than New York teens give birth? Does that surprise you? It shouldn't, because we're in a pro-life state. In theory, pro-life constituents equals pro-life parents, which means pro-life children. They're going to choose life for their baby. So on average, we should literally be jumping up and down when Texas Freedom Network says, hey, on average, your birth rate is above average. It should be. And we should be proud of that. We don't want it to be below average because that means we are aborting our babies. And that does not line up with Texas values. And so when people talk about those reports, know where it's coming from, so you know what their agenda is, and know what numbers they're actually talking about. And so, I did not do this analysis, but this is kind of what I used to do when I was a commodities trader, is analyze things. And I found this analysis, which is really good, which basically says, lines up with the whole pro-life law comment. The percentage of adults in a state identifying as pro-life decreases the number of teens who actually have abortions and bring their babies into this world. The exact opposite is true. The fewer pro-life adults, more abortions. This is just another way of looking at the different states. Over here on the left are some of the top 10 pro-life states: Georgia, Texas, Louisiana, Oklahoma. You will notice that their birth rate is very high compared to the 10 pro-abortion states on this side, and the abortion rate over here is significantly higher. Based on what we just talked about, that shouldn't be a surprise. And then this, all I've done here is I've taken the percentage of pregnancies aborted and shown it here. So pro-life states, very low percentage of abortions. Pro-abortion states, very high percentage of abortions, right? Again, we should be happy our birth rates are higher than average. Don't ever let someone tell you otherwise. Okay, so comprehensive sex education, it fails. So our program that is in our school right now, draw the line, respect the line. It's not only in all middle schools in Northeast ISD, it's in 80% of middle schools in San Antonio. Many, many districts adopted this curriculum. And they did it because UT Health Science Center, San Antonio Metro Health, came to the districts and said, hey, we have gotten a grant, or UT Health Science Center got a grant from Obama-era Washington, D.C., teen pregnancy prevention, and so we can offer this curriculum to you for free. And so that's part of the reason it's in our school district, is it's for free. And guess what? The money that came from Washington, D.C. was given to programs that reported that their programs were not successful. So they did their evidence-based analysis, went through the process, turned it in and said, we're not helpful, but give us money anyway. We want to put it in middle schools. And they did. That's where our money came from. And the publishers say this does not help girls. We have a school board that didn't seem to care about that. I have a problem with that. And that's why our school board needs to change. 3 programs actually put more risk on the student. Didn't just not help them, it made them worse than not taking it at all. Okay, so teen sex is risky. And maybe that seems obvious to us, but people like Planned Parenthood, ETR Publishing, SECAS, Texas Freedom Network, they're not going to tell you that teen sex is risky. They're going to tell you that teen sex is safe. That's what this curriculum does. Just wear a condom. You'll be fine. Do whatever you want. You'll be fine. But let's look at the data. The data actually says, of course, the more sex we have, that increase in pregnancies and STDs. That one seems obvious, right? We also tend to be a higher victim of sexual abuse. Higher incidence of depression, higher incidence of divorce as adults, higher instances of just behaving in or participating in risky behaviors, alcohol, drugs, theft, those types of things, vaping. Because if we can't control ourselves in one aspect of our lives, why do we think we're going to control it someplace else? Also, increased poverty as adults, which also correlates to decreased educational attainment as adults. The more sex we have in high school, the worse we'll do in college, the worse we'll do in life. So why do we want to promote sex to our kids? It doesn't, from any angle, it doesn't make sense. On top of the fact, it is not healthy. And this is the one, oh, whoops, sorry. This is the one here that I think should really get people's attention. Like I said, I have teenagers, I have all the way down to a 2-year-old, and a lot of my kids' friends' parents want to be friends with their children instead of parents. And what this says is they need you to be a parent. If you are just a friend to them, you're going to drive a wedge between them and you. You have a condom drawer at home and say, go to it. You're basically putting a wedge between you and your child as they grow up. No reason to do that either. All kinds of reasons to not promote sex to our kids. Of course they should understand if something happens and you cross a line you shouldn't, we're here to help you. But we don't need to encourage them to cross the line. You'll notice in your packet and here and at the end, I'll give you my contact information. You can always call me, you can always email me. I will always back everything up. I really don't believe in putting anything out there if I can't put my name on it. So you can share it with whoever you want. And I do have a Facebook page, Flag on the Play, that has some information on it. It's not the most stellar Facebook page you've ever seen. So Texas is different because we have a law that's supposed to be protecting us. But did you know that awesome Ken Mercer, who every time I've testified in front of his board, he does such a good job of asking the best questions, drawing attention to all the right things, making sure that it is obvious what we're there to talk about. But he has no authority to help in this situation. He can't go to the school district and say, you can't teach it, because he told you he doesn't have authority over health textbooks. That's not okay. He also can't help me when I'm able to show that it violates Texas law. He doesn't have that authority either. It's not in his jurisdiction. And so we need other avenues to help with that. But we have the laws that should be protecting us, and we need to figure out how to make sure that happens. So the program is called Draw the Line, Respect the Line. And I have the curriculum, not because it's easy to get your hands on, but because a friend's aunt purchased it for $600 so that we could spend hundreds of hours researching it. If it wasn't for that, you would not have this presentation. You would not know the content of the curriculum, and neither would any parent in Northeast ISD, and I'll explain why. So I told you about the federal funding. It was implemented fall 2016, so it's been happening for over 3 years. 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. 7th and 8th grade are sexual situations. 6th grade are non-sexual situations. But when we talk about how they talk to our kids about drawing the line, I'm going to explain why even 6th grade is a problem. And again, remember, middle school, 11, 12. I have an 8th grader. He's 13. He has not turned 14 yet. We're not talking about 18-year-olds. We're not talking about college students. We're talking about middle school children. Okay, so the Texas Education Code is really important. I grew up with a father who said it is important to follow the laws. And at the time I was raised, I was told if I didn't like the laws, that I should work with my legislators, vote the right people in to get the laws I want. Well, what's happening now is school districts all across the state are saying, screw the law, I'm going to do what I want. And that's not okay, but we as a community can stand up and say enough is enough. Because the law says we have a say. So Texas Education Code 28.004, Section A, which is the very beginning of that section. That's what A means. The Board of Trustees of each school district shall establish a SHAC, Student Health Advisory Council, to assist the district in ensuring that local community values are reflected in the district's health education. That means our community should be informing our board with our opinion on how much recess we should have, what we should be offering for lunch choices, and what we're teaching for sex education. And we have a SHAC, but it is closed to the public. We're not allowed to know when, where, why, or how. So how on earth are we supposed to inform the SHAC? One person basically controls the whole thing, determines who's on it, selects like-minded people, won't select people who won't support her agenda, and the board has effectively given that authority to her by not stopping her. And she has also recently required that every SHAC member sign an oath of confidentiality, and they are literally not allowed to tell you what they're talking about, what they're voting on, what they're researching. And it was described to me by one of the SHAC members as an absolute gag order. I got my hands on it, and I'm not a lawyer, I can't tell you how legal it actually is for them to do that, but it scares the crap out of you when you read it. You're not going to talk, and you can't serve if you don't sign it. That is not in the spirit of this at all, and it shouldn't be happening. Okay, so Northeast ISD Board and the SHAC, who's supposed to have our back, who's supposed to be representing community values, did not read the curriculum at all prior to voting. Let that sink in just a little bit. We got a free program, and no one actually picked up the curriculum and read it and tabbed it like I did. They received summaries from the people who came to them and said, I'll give it to you for free, and here's what's in it. And it was 12 pages. This is 300 pages of material sitting over here. 12 pages. And they summarized it, saying, of course it teaches abstinence. Of course you learn the tools to leave and make a good choice. Of course we tell them over and over and over again that abstinence is the only choice that will protect you from STD, HIV, AIDS, blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't. But we said, okay, sure. Bring it in and teach it. You know, all teachers will teach it to all of our children. They'll say they read it. Ever since I've been saying they didn't read it, and Patrick can tell you, he talked to them, he knows they didn't read it. I met with the superintendent, he told me he didn't read it. But now they've started saying that they are. So I did an open records request, because it's open meetings, they have to document the communication with board members. There's no documentation saying, here's where you can go to pick it up, here's how you view it, here's an online copy to there's none. And I asked 3 different times, 3 different ways, and I even said, you're saying they read it, so how'd you get it to them? Sorry, we don't have it. They didn't read it. And these are our trustees, entrusted to take care of our children. Okay, so Student Health Advisory Council, they reviewed 4 curriculums, all by ETR Publishing. They refused to look at anything else. They narrowed it down to 2, based on whether or not they could teach 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. The 2 they eliminated didn't have a 6th grade, and they wanted all 3 grades. Didn't matter if it was appropriate, they just wanted all 3 grades. And so they evaluated Draw the Line, Respect the Line, and another program, and Draw the Line, Respect the Line was actually the least offensive. So maybe we can be proud that they picked the least offensive of those. None of the curriculums they reviewed met the Texas Education Code. No one went through a process to say, let's check and make sure these actually meet the law before we even talk about them. Not done. They had a checklist of things you should look for in a good program, and there was one line that says, does it meet the Texas Education Code? And they marked yes. No actual research, no actual evaluation of the curriculum. And again, they were not viewed prior to the vote. The curriculum's ineffectiveness was ignored. They didn't care that it didn't help girls. The board didn't even ask for proof of how it would help people. I can't remember if it was Patrick or someone else at the board meeting stood up and said, you realize the publishers say this doesn't help girls. And the administration answered the board members' questions by saying something that basically made no sense. And saying, well, we just really don't know if any of these programs really work until they get a lot older. And we decided to take it anyway. Even though the previous curriculum, Choosing the Best, we ignored its success in our own school district. In our own school district, we adopted it in 2008, It got kicked out in 2016 with this new program. And from 2008 to 2016, our middle school pregnancies in all of Northeast ISD went from 14 to 2. From 14 to 2. And all they had to do was ask. I got that information through an open records request. Not one board member asked that question. They were provided a table that listed all the high schools and how many pregnancies we had in the high schools over periods of years. And at the very bottom, they combined Reagan, Johnson, and middle school into one number. That's what they were provided. No one asked for the detail. And our program was working, monstrously working. You cannot get just 2 more and it would have been 0. They were also told, the SHAC was told, prior to voting on this, that we needed a new curriculum because we were having a severe 6th grade pregnancy problem. It's documented in the minutes. But guess what? When I requested the data, we didn't have a 6th grade pregnancy problem. Most of those years that choosing, I think we had 1 the first year and then 0 every year after that. Yet they were told we had a 6th grade pregnancy problem. Okay, so the SHAC is not working properly, and I have learned so much. I could literally spend 2 hours on the SHAC. One of the reasons we need people to step up and support new board members, run for the board, is because we need to fix that for the health of our children. It should not be closed to the public. It should not be run by one person. The board is supposed to approve the people who participate in the SHAC, and what currently happens is this one person gets recommendations from the principals in the district, decides who's going to be on the SHAC. They start serving in September, and she takes it to the board for a vote anytime between November and January, after they've been serving for 3 months. They just rubber stamp everything she brings to them. Texas Freedom Network has infiltrated the SHACs. They actually have webinars online where they are instructing people that are like-minded as to how to infiltrate the SHACs and shield them from conservatives, so that only non-conservative programs get chosen for sex education. And they're very proud about how they do it and how many school districts they've done it in. So, what do parents expect when it comes to sex ed? You want to give me an idea? What you expect, what you think your neighbor expects?
Biology.
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 Anything else?
Anatomy.
Anatomy. Birds and bees, basically human reproduction. Guess what? That's not taught. Not taught. Yes?
Why not just leave it to the good wisdom and judgment of the parents?
That's what we should be doing. And our community has
Amen.
Our community actually has the right to do that. Back when I said the community has a say, at least they can make a recommendation. The community actually gets to decide if the community even wants to have sex ed. And then if they choose that they want it, they also get the choice as to whether or not contraception is offered. The law is actually very strong if it's actually followed. But that Texas Freedom Network report that comes out and bashes Texas and how terrible we're doing, it'll actually say, do you know even 20% of Texas school districts don't even teach sex ed? That's how far behind they are. No, we need to praise those school districts because they're making a conscious choice to keep these Planned Parenthood, Texas Freedom Network, all of those who have an agenda out of their schools. It's a good thing, but of course they paint it as a bad thing. But you are 100% right. That's what should be happening, and it's not. And I was told that I am not the right person to teach this to my children because I am not comfortable with my own sexuality. Yeah, because I am not properly indoctrinated, I haven't been properly taught. So there's actually, this is another reason we need a new board of trustees. There's actually the same administrator I've been mentioning. She and another employee of the district have been going around the state doing seminars with other districts in Texas. I think in April last year they had 300 attendees. In November they did an online, so I don't even know how many people attended the online webinar. But they're doing an hour presentation called the Northeast ISD Success Story, and we actually have the audio recording, we have it transcribed, and basically what they are saying is that look at what happened in Northeast ISD and you can do it too. And they brag about how they overcame parent opposition and put in place what they wanted. And they are teaching districts across the state how to do it. This David Wiley, who is a very pro comprehensive sex education guy who used to teach at Texas State, is associated with this webinar thing they've been doing. He hosted the first one they did. And that one, there were 3 of them speaking, that's where they said, conservative parents, right-wingers, platform seekers is what we were called, people who, like Patrick was described, and all of you, or the people who were here last night that actually were trying to object to the curriculum before it was adopted, showed up at the board meeting, they were described as community members that were platform seekers, and none of them had middle school children. Patrick, you had 3 at the time or something, right? There were tons of middle school parents, but they're 100% misrepresenting the situation. And they said, parents don't want this taught because they're uncomfortable with their own sexuality. And our board is allowing this to happen. They might not even know what's happening. I tried to bring it to their attention and they won't listen. So, no biology, no biology, no biology. And so I asked the administration, where are you teaching biology? That's what parents think. That's what they think I'm saying you shouldn't be teaching. But it's not in here, where is it? Well, we teach it extensively in 7th and 8th grade science. Well, at the time, I had an 8th grader. He's pretty smart. He told me, no, I haven't been tested on that. Oh, well, he must be wrong. Okay, fine. So I met with the head science teacher at Bush Middle School. No, they don't teach it. It's not in the TEKS. They don't have time. The closest they get is cell reproduction. That's it. That's the only reproduction that is taught in middle school. Yet we have class, and I'm going to show you later on what we're going to talk to, what they talk to these kids about, and they haven't even had true biology. Not taught, not taught, not taught. Parents are not mentioned as a positive resource to seek out if you have challenges, a problem, questions. I must be just getting too far forward. Matter of fact, there are even some very, very anti-parent statements in the curriculum. This is an STD fact sheet that is given to the kids. At the top, it's talking about what should you do if you think you might have an STD. You don't have to tell your parents unless you want to. That's in the book. The fact that that's even present should make us not in our schools, period, irregardless of the rest of the content. But you should go to a health clinic. You should go to a teen or a school clinic. You should go to an STD clinic or go to your local healthcare provider. But you don't need to go to your parents if you don't want to. They even teach the kids how to call hotlines. The CDC, I'm standing in a bad spot here. The CDC, how to call them, how to ask questions about STDs. And they even say on that worksheet, no one will know who you called. It won't show up on your phone bill. 11, 12, 13-year-old children. Not okay. Yes, sir.
And I've heard, I don't know if this is true, but I'm not going to go into detail on it, but are children being taught about sexual perversions?
I believe so, yes. You'll see towards the end. I think people define that a little bit differently. It's not as bad as what you are seeing on the news for Austin ISD, and I'll show you a comparison so you get an idea of what they teach that we don't. But yes, I would say that yes, they are, and I think Patrick would agree with me on that. Again, this is going to get more and more graphic. We haven't even gotten graphic yet. Okay, so we talked about the Texas Education Code. So let me educate you on the pieces of the Texas Education Code. Because I think if our parents are in the community are informed about the law, they're going to be more apt to stand up and say, we expect you to follow the law. Okay, so there are 5 components. The first component is, if you choose to teach sex education, you must teach abstinence as the preferred choice of behavior, not anything else. But what is taught in our curriculum is that they are equal. You can have sex or not have sex. Whatever you, the 12-year-old, feels comfortable with. Whatever you feel ready for.
Oh my God.
It is not given a preference like it should be. You're supposed to devote more attention to abstinence than any other sexual behaviors. It does not. Matter of fact, it is like the exact opposite of what it should be. And I did some very detailed analysis recently that I went lesson by lesson and actually not only documented that abstinence wasn't taught,
but how much other sexual behaviors, feelings, all that kind of stuff was talked about with the assumption of sex, consequences of sex, STDs, contraception, and you're talking 5% to 95%, it's not even close. And they don't use the word abstinence in the curriculum with the kids, it's not have sex. I think if it did say not have sex, maybe I'd give them credit for following the law because it is a word choice, but that's not the problem here. It's just not even there. Number 3, you must emphasize that abstinence is the only way to protect yourself 100% from STDs, HIV, AIDS, and the emotional trauma associated with sexual activity. That is in the curriculum one time. In over 300 pages of teacher and student material one time. And it's not even in the student workbook. It's the best is in there like 2 times, so let's round that up and say 5 times in 300 pages of material. They kind of do this, so I'm going to kind of give them credit, but it's not the spirit of the law. It's not what it was intending. Number 4, they must direct adolescents to a standard of behavior which encourages them to choose abstinence until marriage. That is in our law. Smart people who did that. It is the healthiest. It is the best for our children. It's the best for our families. Families would be together if we could figure this out, right? No, not. There are 2 questions in the entire curriculum that if you are so bold and you want to circle that as your answer as to where you draw the line, you have the opportunity to possibly do so. The teacher has to bring up one. It's not actually in any books or anything. She has to remember to bring it up. And the other one is all other sexual choices, and if you want to, you can abstain till marriage, but it's your choice. You draw the line where you'd like to draw the line. So, remember how I said if you teach sex education, the community should be deciding whether or not you teach contraception, okay? But the Sex Education Code says if you teach contraception, you must use human use reality rates, not laboratory rates. They must be real numbers. This curriculum violates that. It uses laboratory rates. It says a condom is 98% effective. It says that other contraception, 98% effective. Basically, you don't got anything to worry about. One of the answers to how to protect yourself from an STD, 4 parts, and you pick basically, it looks like you pick one. Like, pick one of these and you'll be fine. Vaccine. Get a vaccine. It'll protect you. HPV does possibly protect you, but a study says it doesn't, that the HPV vaccine actually doesn't work. They want the kids to choose to use a condom. And so they believe that if they inflate the number to the laboratory rate, then the kids will. But Patrick, do you want to give the numbers on what is the actual adult rate, like 25% or something that the Medical Institute came out with, or 28%?
About 22%.
22%. And they were telling children, 98%. They do slide in there, but 18 out of 100 might get pregnant. But that's after they tell them it's 98% effective, and that's not what the law says. That 98% shouldn't be there. Okay, so maybe it meets 1, and that's a stretch. So we're not kind of violating the law. It really doesn't meet the law. Nowhere close. Anybody who has actually read the curriculum, I cannot imagine they can come to any other conclusion. And I asked them, please show me. Show me, show me, show me. They couldn't do it. Okay, so would it surprise you to know that our curriculum, written in California, doesn't meet Texas law? Since when have you known California to be a good representation of Texas values? That in itself should have kept this out of our schools, but it didn't. ETR Publishing, which is what is printed on these books, was started by Planned Parenthood of Santa Cruz. And we can now prove that. They started ETR in the early 80s. After the late 70s, they had so much opposition from California parents because Planned Parenthood had come into their schools. Even California parents said this is a bad idea. And so they changed the name. And now they take it all across the country. This is really upsetting, and this is the direction that ETR is headed. I don't know what their overall philosophy was back in the 80s, but this is a blog post from just this last December. They're using the Holy Trinity symbol,
Oh, my God.
and they are describing sexual pleasure as the primary point of sex education. Not okay. Not even close.
No,
Someone did that intentionally.
that's terrible.
And in that same article, they're saying that sex education should be pleasure education. This is the direction our publisher wants to go. This is the stuff they believe. Even though it's not currently in our curriculum, these are the people we have let in our school. They believe that you should acknowledge that sex is about pleasure. And even more so, you should teach pleasure because sometimes people wrongly replace it with love and trust when deciding to have sex. Youth are more likely and receptive to a message if it's fun. So let them know how fun and pleasurable sex is going to be. And don't be so medical. Don't get caught up in the medical stuff because that prevents kids from learning about the pleasure that they can get from sex. This is who we've invited into our house. So, think about this. Patrick loves to talk about this, and he's 100% right. Everything else that Northeast ISD does, don't do drugs. We have a don't do drug week. Don't drink. Don't drink. Don't smoke. Don't smoke. If you vape on Reagan's campus, you're like suspended, possibly expelled. But have sex. It's okay. Just make sure you're comfortable with wherever you draw the line. So let's talk about that for a second. Why is it called draw the line, respect the line? It's called that because they want you as the individual person, the individual child, to decide where your line is. So if Patrick's line is that, his line is, well, I might want to touch a girl on the outside of her clothes, but also underneath her clothes. Or it might be okay if we took our clothes off. I'll just draw the line at actual intercourse. Or maybe I want to draw the line at things that aren't intercourse, but something else and more fun and more pleasurable. That's where I draw my line. And you're taught to respect the other person's line wherever it is drawn, supposedly. I could argue that as well. Wherever you, Cimarron, wherever you feel ready, you 12-year-old boy.
Not the parent's line,
No,
not God's line.
no.
A lot of parents would agree with all of this,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
And when you get to 8th grade, at the very beginning of the teacher handbook, it says you might want to pose the question to the 8th graders. Now that you're in 8th grade, where do you want to move your line? Because you drew one last year, and you were 11, 12, now you're 13. Surely your line needs to change, right? So, online, if you go to ETR's website, it will tell you that it promotes abstinence by teaching safe sex, which doesn't make any sense. They've inserted that word. In this actual curriculum, that word promotes abstinence is not there, and you'll see it in your handouts, page 13 through 16. They describe safe sex, and the word abstinence isn't there. I would guess they added it because they know people like me go out and want to know if it actually teaches abstinence. I go online, I see the word abstinence, I think, okay, it teaches abstinence, I'm good. It doesn't. It doesn't teach abstinence. I don't think fraudulent's the right word, but it's wrong. Okay, one thing you should understand, remember I said that the board and the Shack viewed summaries. I want you to think about a history textbook. And think about at the beginning of the book, let's say it's U.S. history. It's going to describe the generalities of what you're going to learn about U.S. history, kind of as a preface to the book, right? For any book we read, we tend to have an introduction. And then you get to the first chapter, and it says it's going to teach X, Y, Z. The next chapter is going to teach X, Y, Z. You follow me how every chapter has a summary? But then when you actually get into the chapter, you have lessons and things you read and problems you do or essays you write, research you do that determine how you learn what they just told you were going to learn. So imagine you have a history book, U.S. history, and you have a chapter called the Civil War. And you're going to be taught how it was fought, who the parties were, how it ended. That's the summary. But you get to the lesson, and the lesson teaches you to memorize the presidents from George Washington to Trump. Did you learn about the Civil War? No. That's what this book does. The summary tells you what you want to hear. The content of the curriculum does not line up with the summary. That's snaky. That's wrong. But that's what's happening. And I can prove it. Okay, so if your child is bold enough to want to choose abstinence, and if a parent opts their child into this, and we'll talk about that, parents do have a choice as to whether or not their child has to go. That child is not going to be given the tools to choose abstinence, but the school district is going to tell you that they are. And so I would encourage you to say, show me. Show me in the book where you're teaching my child tools to choose abstinence. You will, what they provide you with, if they provide you with anything, will not pass the sniff test when it comes to choosing abstinence. The tone and the language of the exercises and the stories they use are basically 50 Shades of Grey for teenagers. It's provocative, it's arousing, it's inappropriate. Okay, so grade 8, second to last lesson, lesson 6. This is one place that the shack said, the story called Herman uses a condom and these condom lessons, I don't think our community can handle that. So we're going to replace that with 9 steps as to how to put on a condom. We're going to make sure they know those steps even though we don't show them. Okay? Anytime anybody from the district or anyone else tells you what Melissa says is about stuff that's not in the curriculum, I promise you, I'm only talking about the stuff they're actually teaching. In order for me to know this is what they're teaching, because it's not in the book, I had to go to Blossom Athletic Center and sit down and read the entire chapter and handwrite it, because I was not allowed to take photos, so that I could then put these 9 steps up here for you. Okay? This is what they're teaching in this lesson, and this is how it works. All 9 of these steps are on individual pieces of paper, but they're not numbered. And so let's say that, let's use this group because we got boys and girls. Let's say that you 4 right here I'm going to put you in a group. And everybody's going to look at these 9 steps up here on the board. I want you to pay attention. I want you to read them. I guess the teacher might say them out loud. Maybe she's uncomfortable with that, so she doesn't. I don't know. And then I'm going to give you these 9 things, and I'm going to turn this off. And I'm going to tell you 4. I want you to talk amongst yourself. I want you to read these cards to each other and determine what order they go in. And so when you put them in order the first time, you need to read them and see if that makes sense. And if it doesn't, you need to move them around and agree. Once you finally agree, you think you have them all in the right order, I'll come check them. So how many times are these 4 and talk about all these steps in order to make that happen? I'm 11, 12. Actually, these people are probably 13. That's what this exercise does. The shack was lied to about this exercise. They saw this, and one of the ladies on the shack did think to ask. Patrick was there at that meeting. I wasn't, but I heard it after the fact on an audio recording. But my kid's not going to actually, you're not going to hand these to the kids, right? Nope, not going to hand them to the kids. The game is handing them to the kids. They lied. Next lesson, last lesson of the whole thing. Yes, Imran?
Who's they that lied?
In that situation, it was San Antonio Metro Health, which was hired as an independent consultant, I believe, by UT Health Science Center, and I have MOUs to kind of prove that relationship. They answered that question. And I believe that a Northeast ISD employee agreed when he answered it.
Yeah, just real quick, Metro Health,
Yeah, you can give that.
Metro Health lent their expert to UT Health Science Center and that's the county. And so all together, along with the city and this thing is deep. It's deep. Lots of players.
But
Yeah.
they will teach or train the curriculum so they can speak to it. That's why they're there.
Yeah. And UT Health Science Center got the grant, and they get paid for every child that participates in this. And so I don't know exactly what the contractual relationship between San Antonio Metro Health and UT Health Science Center is, but I know that a director of PE Health signed an MOU with San Antonio Metro Health and UT Health Science Center agreeing to allow them to help with this process. This is the last activity, and this one is going to be played similar, like the game from the last one. We're going to talk about all these different activities, sexual activities, And we're going to talk about whether they're safe, whether they're not safe, whether they're green light, which means they're totally fine. And then you're gonna go in your groups, and you're gonna, okay, this is a green light activity, this is a yellow light activity, this is a red light activity. Amongst yourselves, and then the teacher's gonna come check. Or in some instances, you're gonna come up and present to the rest of the group. This is how they define the answer. So it's safe to touch kids on top of the clothes or under the clothes. That's a green light activity, do it however you want. How often you want. Yellow light activity, French kiss, mouth to genitals with or without a latex barrier, penis and vagina with a latex condom. There's some risk that you should know about. Penis and vagina with no condom, penis and rectum with and without a condom, which condoms are not actually made for. Risky. Not don't do them, risky. And remember, Cimarron, you 12-year-old boy, sorry I'm picking on you, you decide where you draw the line. If you want to draw the line right here, we're okay with that. If you want to draw the line right here, we're okay with that. You're 12 years old, you're old enough to know, you
I
decide.
don't know how risky it is.
And they're not fully disclosing how risky it is. And I could spend a whole year on that.
I'm sorry, you said 12-year-old and.
That would probably be 13, sorry, I was doing kind of the average. My kid's 13, if he was in it, he'd be 13. Yeah, this is 8th grade, so 13. Okay, the stories they use, so those are games. The stories they use are also a problem. So in 7th grade, there's a story called James and Alana. The entire story is in your packet. Basically, Lisa's parents aren't home, and they go through and talk about this physical encounter between James and Alana. I'm not going to read it to you, but I suggest you read it if you don't believe me that it's a problem. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play a video of lesson 2, 7th grade. So this would be probably 12-year-old, 7th grade, lesson 2. And this video is the parent preview that the school provides the parents, telling them what's actually in this chapter. Part of the problem with what's going on is the district is not being forthcoming about the content of the curriculum. They're telling them they're teaching abstinence. They're not. And they're not giving them the content of these stories ahead of time. Unless you go and sit down, take time out of work, and go through the curriculum. And so when you show up and you trust your school district and you sit in a room like this and they're giving a presentation, they're not showing you what I'm showing you. And so I'm going to show you what they show you, and then I'm going to show you what actually happens. Okay? So give me just a second. Mike, if you have a commercial, go ahead. It won't take me 30 seconds, but.
Well, what we need is we need everyone to participate in spreading the word, and you've heard it here a couple of times, whether or not you want to step up and potentially run as trustee on the Northeast Independent School District Board, or if you want to get involved in the shack or whatever it might be, let us know, and we'll do our very best to help you.
Thank you. Very good. Perfect time.
Draw the line, respect the line. Sequence of lessons, day 2, lesson 2. Lesson 2 is titled Reasons for Not Having Sex. The purpose is for kids to take a close look at the consequences of having sex. The objectives are to compare the emotional consequences of having sex with the emotional consequences of not having sex, and to personalize the emotional consequences of having or not having sex. In lesson 2.1, we will be reviewing the previous lesson's key points. The plan for the day is getting the class organized and ready to discuss the day's topics. Tina and Marco is a story that students will be discussing and working with. It will assist in helping students identify and personalize immediate and short-term consequences of having or not having sex, with a focus on the emotional consequences. The closure activity will summarize and conclude the lesson.
So that's what they told you about lesson 2. What did you hear? What do you think your kids are going to be taught? What's it titled, and what are they going to be taught? Consequences of having sex, not having sex.
Reasons for not having sex.
Reasons for not having sex. That's what it's titled. Reasons for not having sex. Anything else you caught?
They're making it equal.
What's that? They're making it equal.
Not abstinence.
Yeah, reasons for, if you caught him say reasons for having sex or not having sex. Okay, so, next what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you what Tina and Marco actually is. Notice they didn't read Tina and Marco. They didn't show them Tina and Marco. When you go to these parent previews, if the books are in the classroom, they'd be at that very, very back thing and they'd say, hey, when it's time to go, you can stop by and look if you want. So what parent's gonna have more than 5 minutes to do that? There's one set of books. If you ask to see Tina and Marco, I've been to many parent previews, most of the time, well, you can look at it afterwards, or you can come in and look at it. They don't take the time. Only Lopez Middle School actually left the room and went and got a copy of Tina and Marco. Wouldn't read it out loud, but did actually put it on their overhead. We had another situation where a mom who knew the content of the curriculum showed up to the parent preview. When this was played and someone asked what Tina and Marco was, the teacher didn't provide it. And so she said, I have it right here. Can I read it? And she did. A couple days later, she got a certified letter telling her she was no longer, from the district, signed by administration, saying she was no longer welcome to come to parent previews, and that no one was allowed to pass out any material that was not pre-approved. It came straight out of the curriculum. They are trying to keep information from our students' parents. So, yeah, it's not okay. So you have Tina and Marco in your packet. I'm going to go ahead and read it to you out of the book.
What page?
In your packet, you're going to be page 17. So the whole story is this. Tina is someone a little older than you, an 8th grader. Saturday night, Tina told her grandmother she was going to do homework at a friend's house, but she went to a party with her friend instead. When Tina got there, the house was a little dark and there were no parents. Music was playing and some kids were slow dancing. Other kids were drinking some punch that had alcohol in it. Tina was feeling uncomfortable because she couldn't find her friend, so she had a drink. Just then, Tina was wishing someone would come over and talk to her. Marco, someone Tina had seen at school, came over. And then Marco and his friends had been talking about doing it tonight. Marco joined in the talk, even though he knew he wasn't ready to do anything. Marco didn't know many girls at the party, so he was happy to see Tina. Marco got a drink and offered another one to Tina. Tina was unsure, but then she took it. And this is where it's got it up here on the screen. Marco asked Tina to dance, and they began having a good time. Then Marco saw his friends watching, and he wanted to impress them. So he started to touch Tina in ways that felt kind of good, but they were also a little embarrassing. The touching felt good to Tina too, but like Marco, she felt a little embarrassed. Tina wasn't sure whether she wanted Marco to touch her in that way. Both Marco and Tina were feeling uncomfortable because everybody was watching, but they were feeling a little woozy from the punch, and it was hard to think clearly. Tina decided that Marco was special, so she let him keep touching her. Soon Marco's friends were signaling for them to go to the bedroom, so Marco suggested the idea to Tina. Tina wasn't sure whether it was a good idea, but because she liked Marco and wanted the night to be special, they went. Marco took Tina's hand and started to go upstairs. They opened a door, it was a bedroom. They opened another door, it was a closet. They opened a third door, it was a bedroom. Tina and Marco went into the bedroom. Soon they were lying on the bed, kissing and touching. They didn't really talk about having sex, it just happened. After they did it, Tina and Marco found their friends and went home. The end. Did that teach abstinence at all?
No
Did it-
self-control.
It didn't teach any form of self-control. There are no questions that say, point out all of the situations that Tina and Marco put themselves in that got them where they ended up, and how to get out of them, not in there. The questions are, well, how do you think Tina felt after? How do you think Marco felt after? 4 weeks later, Tina's pregnant. How do you think she feels now? That's the lesson on reasons not to have sex. Does that make you feel good?
No.
Do you feel like the district is being honest about the content of that lesson?
Seems like Marco was deceiving Tina to impress his friends, which is wrong, and that's not talked about.
Nope.
And always lying to the grandma starts off. That's
Exactly.
starting off with dishonesty.
No question about that either. Yes, Ken?
They seem to really get the pleasure thing is what happened to Austin was, it's worse than they have links on there that Melissa's familiar with it, the parents always can't see the links. And there are 4 videos done by Planned Parenthood, and it's the same party thing. When you get in the video, it's 2 males meet each other at the party, never knew each other, really like each other, they go to a room, they're just talking and kissing and words called grinding and whatever else. And it goes like video 1 is, what if you wanna have sex but he doesn't? In the second half of the video, the same party, you meet 2 girls who are strangers meet each other, you know, which is the worst thing you can do with strangers, right? And they go into a room, so already they're promoting 2 men, 2 females, but there's 4 videos, only watched 2, I couldn't watch. The second video was, first is what if you wanna have sex, but he doesn't. The second one, what if you don't want to, but he wants to, then what if you both want to, then there's 4 videos that, but those are, we can't even see that, because those are the links the kids have, is that true? You can touch on there, so.
This particular curriculum, those videos are part of a different curriculum,
Oh,
not
okay.
part of this one. But ETR, the publisher, has videos that teachers can go get and show. So it doesn't mean that teachers not gonna go get that, right?
Well, the kids can click them themselves, they get a material.
Exactly, I mean, they have lots of ways now to figure that kind of stuff out.
That party thing about
So
Mike,
what they do is they'll hand this out. This is material. Remember, when they approved this, they approved it in its entirety. Okay, Melissa and I've talked about this. The whole thing, draw the line, respect the line, was approved by the board. Okay, some rogue teacher could go order this stuff if she wanted to. And back here is a QR code. If you don't know what a QR code does, your kids know what a QR code does. Because all you do is scan that QR code and it goes right to a video. And that video, you'd be amazed of what they're doing on the video. It is demonstration. Well, I'll just show you. It's a demonstration that comes with the kit, which is this. How to put a condom on. And there's plenty of condoms for practice and what have you. And it says on there, practice, practice, practice. But most importantly, have fun. That's what it says on the video.
It even says, as part of the condom lesson, make sure that children understand that it can add to the sexual experience when the 2 partners learn how to put the condom on together. Yes,
This is so very sick.
it is. I'm
Must be
sorry.
condemned.
No, I agree with you. And I apologize, I have to stand up here and read it. But this is no different than the abortion situation. If we don't look at it, if we don't see it, we can't stop it. Yes, Simran?
So the parent video mentioned on day 2 or something like that, how long, what is the duration of the program or teaching of it?
6th, 7th, and 8th grade are about 7 days each. So, like, let's say they start on a Monday, they'll go Monday through Friday, and then Monday, Tuesday. So usually 7 days in a row, and usually as part of the health class or their PE class is where they'll teach it.
Did you say they can opt out, the parents can opt out?
Yes, Texas law is written that gives parents the right to opt their children out, which means the kids don't have to participate. The challenge is, think about the preview you just saw. Doesn't seem like you should opt your kid out of that. But if I read you Tina and Marco, would you opt your kid out? Okay, so they're not being upfront about the content of the curriculum. Parents are sending their children, and children are literally coming home crying. There are other kids like one girl went to another girl whose mom opted her out. I'm so glad your mom opted you out. I wish my mom would have done that. But they're not telling their mom that because the mom had to sign. In our district, we're actually an opt-in district. So one thing our district is doing right in this regard, kind of. The law says you have to give me the right to take my kid out. But our district says that they need a signed piece of paper from me to put the kid in, which is actually good, but I just found this week in a document at the district where the administration is instructing the teachers on how they keep track of that. The system for opt-in and opt-out automatically defaults to opt-in. And the teacher has, anytime they get a paper that says no, which you're not required, I don't even turn a paper in. My kid knows I'm not getting put in the class. If they get a no, go in and change it to no. And then make sure you notice who didn't turn a form in and go turn them to a no. It's set up to fail. Some kid is gonna end up taking the class because it should default to no. And they should have, so we are technically opt-in, but I did have a parent in November tell me, I know my kid went through it, and I know I didn't sign the paper. And so I started digging, trying to figure out how that happened. That's how it happens. And,
When was this adopted?
May 9th,
2016.
2016.
Yeah,
What month?
May,
May 9th, 2016.
After the new board or before the new board?
right before the new board.
Okay. The Democrat that's going to run against Lonnie was on the board
She was the president of the board.
Yes, she was.
when this curriculum was adopted. The
I'll be discussing
Democrat
that.
will be-
Oh, yeah.
If she wins,
And you gotta stop. Sorry, afterwards. He'll explain why.
I understand.
Yeah, okay, but understood. Okay, so Tina and Marco, there's another story. Trina and Kashid, it's in your packet. Feel free to read it. None of these are better than the others, some of them are worse. Again, the publishers say it doesn't help girls. I'm not making that up. It's not an after the fact. When they did the study, it doesn't help girls. When I was growing up, if we did have sex ed, they talked about the more people that you sleep with, the more chance you have of getting an STD. I remember the chart. You sleep with 8 people, you're really sleeping with 64. That's not talked about at all. The closest they get to that is saying it is safer to have only one partner at a time. That's the closest they get to that. These are the CDC numbers, which are still awfully high compared to Medical Institute's numbers out of Austin. This is the risk reduction for a condom when it comes to different venereal diseases, STDs, STIs, whatever you want to call them. And so HPV only decreases your risk by 80%, a condom does. Herpes simplex 2, a condom only decreases your risk by 30%. These numbers are not shared with our children, and these are adult numbers. They're actually told a condom is 98% effective, but 18 out of 100 can get pregnant. So when it comes to disease, they're told, as long as you wear a condom, you're fine. Not medically accurate, but they will tell you it is medically accurate. Okay, so how do we compare to Austin? How do we compare to other school districts in San Antonio? So these are the school districts here who teach draw the line, respect the line, as far as my research has been able to tell, a lot in San Antonio. There are a few districts who teach Scott and White, worth the wait. It is an abstinence-based program. They do teach abstinence. It's not perfect, but it is way better than draw the line, respect the line. We used to teach choosing the best, which I told you how well that program worked. Northside currently uses pieces of it. Alamo Heights actually has their own developed program that appears to be really good, very simple, 1 grade. So what I did was I went through, and if you look in your packet, you'll see there's a page where it lists all the different curriculums and their harmful elements. And the harmful elements score goes up to 20. I used some information provided to me by another group, and I modified it because Austin was off the charts. And so I needed to kind of help compare to what we're seeing in the news. So Heritage Keepers is a really great abstinence program, has incredible data to back it up, that it's really, really good, but that was not important to our school district. It wasn't coming from the people that offered free. It has no documented harmful elements, and you'll see on your list what the harmful elements are. Page 31 in your packet. Choosing the best, I was not able to identify any harmful elements. You already find in page 31? Okay. Worth the wait, like I said, it's good, it's pretty good, not perfect. It has 3 harmful elements, you can see what those are. Draw the line, respect the line, 7th and 8th grade, each have 11 harmful elements. We talked about a lot of them here today. Big Decisions, which is what's in our high school and in most of the high schools in San Antonio, has 15 harmful elements. Austin ISD, the one you see in the news, 20 harmful elements. SECUS, which is the national group that was part of the right side of the board with Planned Parenthood, Texas Freedom Network, they're promoting their guidelines for sex education that they want districts to adopt would have 17 harmful elements. This is where we are headed if we do not get a new school board. And I can't tell you, and I know I'm being awfully bold here, but I can't help it. This is where we're headed. Because when we don't stand up, it gives the people we've let in the door permission to keep going. And when they review the curriculum again, and they look at these opt-in numbers that are supposedly 95%, well, they love this curriculum, they'll love the next one. We need to stop it. We need to come back to what makes sense, or put it back in the home. This is just a graphical representation of what I just showed you, so that you can see on a map where, here's Northeast ISD, there's the 11 harmful elements. You can see basically everything within 11 is teaching this to our children. And you can see that North Side has not yet gone to the dark side. High school, I'm still trying to put data together, but you can see 15 is where I've been able to identify big decisions. If it's a 0, they aren't teaching anything, or they're teaching a good program. If there's a question mark, I haven't been able to determine it yet. So remember, these are not people I want in my school. I don't know about you. This is who's in our school right now.
UT Health is in the middle. Is it supposed to be over 4?
No, actually it is in the middle, and I'm sorry I forgot that. I put them in the middle because the best way I could describe the way they appear to function is they go where the money is. Whereas these people are never going to teach abstinence-based education. These people actually, when Obama was handing out the money, and he was handing out the money for comprehensive sex education, they promoted Draw the Line, Respect the Line to all of San Antonio and other even worse curriculums like in Houston and other places. Now that money is ended, you can't get that money anymore. You can only get abstinence education. Now they're offering abstinence education, and just recently did a deal with the Archdiocese of San Antonio. Why? I have no idea. We have theology of the body. I don't know why we do that. So they go where the money is. I would prefer to not have someone selecting our curriculum that is not ideologically lined up with proper health, that jumps back and forth. That's why they're on the line. Okay, so what's really important over here is at the State Board of Education, they are evaluating health teaks right now, and it is really, really important that we support candidates and our board members at the State Board of Education who will want to keep this at the parent and community level, but we do need to fix what's going on with this law and the fact it's not being followed. The other thing is the stuff I've seen. This side is spending a lot of time getting their stuff into the proposed teaks. They cannot be successful at that, or we're going to be headed towards that 17 harmfulness factor, right? So please support state board members who will stand up for our kids. Yes?
Have you, I realize you're very busy, and I realize you might not have had time to check. I went to Catholic grammar school and high school in a co-ed environment, and I gotta tell you, in high school we'd have a dance every month or so, and Sister Mary Principal would carry a flashlight during the slow dance. She'd point out as, hey, you need to leave room for the Holy Spirit. And I guess what I'm saying is, based on my upbringing, I'm the oldest of 12, there was none of that. That was out of the question.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gotten pretty bad. My 17-year-old would say it's pretty common to see 2 girls kissing in the hallway at Reagan.
Oh my God.
I wanted, if y'all don't know, I tried to get on one of the committees for the teaks, and I only have a smartphone, it wasn't set up for that, so once the objectives of the teaks are approved, I talked to Texas Values today, and they'll, if you get on their list, they'll let you know what objectives are approved, and then the public gets to say,
Yes.
That's terrible or horrible.
Yes, there will be opportunity for public comment on those, and so we need to be supportive of that. That's a really good point.
Question,
Yes?
when this program, now, is it already taught in, okay, can we ask to be in the classroom when it's taught?
Are you a parent?
Yes. No, a grandparent.
Grandparent? I believe you will be told no for the privacy of the other children.
Okay, can the parent be in there?
I believe they will be told no for the privacy of the other children.
Well, that's awful. Okay, now, so, listening to all of this, there's gotta be, an agenda on the bottom. Is it to increase pregnancies?
Yes.
Unplanned pregnancies?
Planned promiscuity is what it is.
Well,
Which ultimately
So
increases
there's more
abortion.
abortions.
Abortions.
Yeah.
I mean, but we don't have any clinics, so they're gonna have to open clinics to do that, unless they,
Oh, you mean in schools? Is that what you mean? You say we don't have any clinics?
we don't have any abortion clinics, so we're,
Yeah, we have Planned Parenthood. Yeah.
four in the state?
San
Oh,
Antonio.
still in San Antonio, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so.
Some have been closed.
I retired 17 years ago, and it was only the nurse who could teach. So this is any teacher that can teach it.
In our district, the district sends out some selected employees to get training, and they're the ones that teach it. In other districts outside, people are coming in and teaching, non-teachers. It's technically a better step that teachers are teaching it than to have someone come in that you don't even know. So that's currently at least what our district is doing.
So one time I sat next to this judge on a plane, and she was telling me that because we don't have good sex ed in our state, we have a very high level of abortions. And she said, so many kids don't know the biology. So when did we stop teaching that?
They are teaching biology in middle school, but they are teaching sexual pleasure in middle school.
In middle school?
Middle
Dear
school.
God.
Yeah, and we do have abortions in Texas, we all know that. Our percentages, as we talked about earlier, are lower than other states because we are a pro-life state. But the problem is people are incorrect about, people think comprehensive sex education is successful. And I would just encourage you to say, show me. If you don't leave here tonight with anything else, show me. You say it's successful, show me. Show me the numbers. Because guess what? Draw the line, respect the line, can't show you. And actually all of those curriculums, they don't have good data. And they didn't actually even study the right stuff. Like this didn't study whether girls got pregnant. Studied whether or not a condom was used. That's it. That was the extent of the study. Yes.
So you're talking about middle school curriculum, we don't have to have one, is it the same in high school, we don't have to present?
Yep.
And it gets worse, I guess, in high school?
It does. It actually does a better job of meeting the minimum requirements of the law, but the harmful elements are higher. It's basically, it talks about abstinence more often, and does do a better job of saying 100% or preferred, but it has a lot more harmful elements.
And I would add that the student, that the parent said, you're not going to this, is stuck in a library and has to do a paper or something like that, and it's frowned on by all his peers or whatever, and so they make it uncomfortable for the student too.
It does. When I opt my kid out, he gets sent to the library. Has been given 40 worksheets to work on, a test at the end. We've had other kids say that if it's PE, that they end up having to run the entire class, even though that's not what they would normally do on that day of the week. I've seen documentation at the school district that actually tells teachers if you don't get the papers or you get a paper that says no, make sure you call the parents and explain what high quality education they're missing out on, not even respecting that first answer.
So you can't draw the line.
Yes, not.
What you said again though too,
They
is
just won't
you
respect
need to get involved, because it is throughout the state, and I see the voter guide too, they're asking them, and a lot of people want it in elementary schools, and I just saw in Austin, they'll try and do it in 4 or 5-year-old, you know, if you look at the right people involved now, that chart you showed, that's about that is the way to go, where it's not just middle school, elementary, even K-4.
That's correct. If you go to Planned Parenthood's website, you can actually find a page where it tells parents how to talk to their preschooler about sex and gender. It's appalling. It's out there. And so we need to stop this. There are a lot of other abuses going on too. And so the reason that the TEKS matter is I want you to think about this. The TEKS determine what the teachers teach. Remember I said that science teacher said we don't teach biology because it's not a TEK for science in middle school. And so if we have teaks that are aggressive, that promote this kind of stuff, but I've opted my child out, it's still gonna get taught. They're gonna continue to wanna teach it. It will be harder and harder to pull my child out. The other thing that they're doing, the people who are trying to get this into our schools, and the next step, besides going even younger, is they're bringing in programs that are not called sex ed, they're called anti-bullying programs, welcoming school programs, and it includes sex education, and it encourages teachers how to be inclusive of all different types of gender in their classes, and social studies, and reading, and so forth. And so having a really strong school board who will stand up for our children instead of just letting things slide into our school is really important. Especially because all of San Antonio looks to Northeast ISD. If we do it, so does everybody else.
So are you gonna run?
I wish I could. We're getting transferred and I don't know where. But I am committed to help fill the board. I will do as many conversations with whoever's needs them. I can go to people's coffee tables. I will endorse people if need be. Not that I'm saying that my opinion matters, but people know that I'm the SexEd San Antonio lady. So anyway, I'm committed to help. So if you are interested, I really need to talk to you, or if you know somebody. We are slowly filling some people who are filing and running that'll be really, really good.
What's the filing deadline?
Friday. This Friday, the 14th is the filing deadline for Board of Trustees for Northeast ISD. You just have to fill out a small piece of paper and indicate who your trustee would be. And I can get you there, Patrick can get you that information. So think about running for Board of Trustees. I can let you know whether you're in a district that we really, really, really still need somebody. And there are a couple of districts. There are 5 districts though that people will be voting on out of 7. We have a huge opportunity for the Holy Spirit to really just undo all of this crap. And so if we do our work, I really believe the elections are gonna move in our favor. We need to be praying, 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 lifting up all the children in our schools, all the parents in the schools that are being misled and being lied to. And we need to pray for our school board and administration, that they will start fighting for our children. We need to be aware of parent meetings. Make sure that you don't fall prey to what's happening at the schools. Tell your family, tell your friends, they need to see the actual curriculum. I'll email it to them, whatever needs to happen. I think Patrick has copies. We need to get it in parents' hands, and the school isn't going to do it. Okay, so opt out. It sends a strong message when people don't send their children. And based on what I just told you, make sure you fill out the form and mark no. Because the way the system's set up, even though we're technically opt-in, we've had children that have slid through because they haven't flipped that yes to a no. The law says there should be no disciplinary action, no academic penalty, and all those examples I just gave you, I believe are in violation of this. I think they should go to study hall or be given ice cream. But at a minimum, study hall. Just let them get caught up on their homework. Don't give them 40 more pages of stuff they have to do. That would at least be fair, and it wouldn't punish the child. So why does it matter? If I can opt, because I'll have people that sit opposite of Ken at the State Board of Education say, but Melissa, you can opt your kid out. Why does it matter? The law says I can opt my kid out if I don't want to send them to what's approved. What's approved is abstinence-based education, not this other stuff, right? That's what I'm supposed to be able to opt myself out of, or opt my child out of. But even if I opt my kid out, he hears about it. The girlfriend he's gonna date in 3 years is in the class. She's learning about where she should draw the line instead of abstinence and choosing abstinence. It doesn't benefit my son very much to pull him out. It does temporarily, but not long-term, because all of his friends are being educated on this. Every single child that receives this is a soul that is at risk, and we are all at risk every single day. We don't need to add to that pile. Show me, show me, show me. Don't ever believe a statement without the facts that back it up. The school district has been quoted saying, of course we teach abstinence education. Of course we teach that abstinence is the absolute very, very best choice. And of course we give all the content of the curriculum to the parents online in parent previews. They are quoted saying it, and they will keep saying it. You have to say, show me, show me, show me. Welcoming Schools, we talked about, it's an anti-bullying program. It has not currently been adopted into our school district, but what I'm finding is that it would not be uncommon for a principal to just start bringing in something like this. It might not get approved at the board level. So we also need a board that will put limits in place as to what the schools can implement, because there's all kinds of stuff being sent out. There was a Go Vote YouTube video sent to third grade teachers a couple weeks ago, and that video was very, very liberal focused, and it said, it's a 3-minute video, make sure you stop it at 2 minutes and 28 seconds. What teacher's really gonna have the time to do that? She's gonna hit play and she's gonna go do this and that and come back, it's gonna be over, right? Well, at 2 minutes and 28 seconds, after they were very, very, I would say they had very aggressive conversation about voting and who was oppressed from voting in the past and how white people oppressed, or whatever, you know, it was very, very one-sided in how they talked about voting to 9-year-olds. And then at 2:28, and guess what? When you vote, you get to decide who gets to marry. And over here, there's 2 men, over here, there's a man and a woman, and the guy points over here to the 2 men. You get to decide. Guess what? You don't even see this one. That's marketing until you watch it the second time. And you get to decide choice. And then point over here to pro-abortion. Pro-life is over here. That got sent out to our third grade teachers. And the only reason I know that is a teacher told me, and she said, I did not play it for my children. It was part of a reading assignment.
Oh, that was for the kids to watch,
Yes.
not the teachers.
The teacher, it was sent to the teachers to play for the children.
Oh.
As part of their lesson plans. So, the good news is the church has the truth and theology of the body. So even though we're a mess at school, we can't opt our children out until we fix this problem, but we need to be teaching theology of the body. There are lots of resources included in your packet. You can get a free book from Dynamic Catholic, which is a great place to get free stuff, which you probably have noticed. You can also go to toba.org and you can get books, DVDs, audio books, and things as young as 5 to 7. But we're not talking about sex. We're talking about how a boy respects a girl, how you have dignity in as a human being, why you are a boy, why you are a girl, why God made you that way, understanding the foundation of the dignity of the person. That's what this is about. And then as you go up in age, there are all kinds of incredible resources for churches, for parents. So don't be silent. Show me, show me, show me. Tell your family, tell your friends. Expect and demand that our school board does better. Support people who are new to the school board, that have a chance of doing the right thing. And research, research, research. Find out what is being taught in your schools, your grandchildren, your children, and go see it. If you can, join your local shack. It might not be easy for you to do right now with ours, but hopefully we'll get a new board in place that will make it, and that's a really important place to be. Right now, in most school districts, that's the only way you will know that they're even thinking about changing the sex education. Otherwise, you wouldn't have a clue. Again, consider running for the board, and make sure that you write to your elected officials and tell them that you want this out of our schools, and you want them to hold the districts accountable for following the law, and that that's important to you. These are the districts. Districts 1, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are the ones that are up for election. Districts 1, 3, and 4, I don't know that we know anybody specifically that is running. So if you happen to be in those districts, we for sure need you. 5 and 6, I know we have at least 2 people in each of those discerning, and I'm pretty sure one's gonna run, and you're gonna be really excited. Or one in each of 5 and in 6. So if you happen to be, well, if the Holy Spirit calls you, period, we wanna know. But if you happen to be 1, 3, or 4, we really, really wanna know. Vote is May 2nd. There are good programs. I could spend all kinds of time up here. Here's my contact information. I'm going to turn it back over to Patrick or Mike, whoever.
Better.
Oh, thank you. And
There's a book for young children called You Don't Have to Choose, and it's very God-centered.
Okay, good.
And it deals with the transgender issue.
Sure.
Oh, good.
It talks about God made you male. and
Can you
female.
text that to me, Ann? I'll add that to.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
I was just curious, do you happen to know Tina's phone number?
Tina. Oh, I don't.
Can you go back to the map?
Just kidding.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Sorry,
That one?
there you go.
I have a comment and then two questions. So this lady over here asked what, why are they doing this? And my thing is, it's just anti-Christ. It's the antithesis of this statement right here. How does communism or socialism take over a country but to erode the family, the building block of society?
Exactly.
So this is a whole way of, you don't have to tell your parents. That's anti-Christ. It's the antithesis of this. Okay. So I have a couple questions. Number one, you mentioned a couple times open records.
Yes.
And at one time, I requested emails from board members. And I was given a price tag of $4,500.
I've gotten those as well, yes.
And so at that point, and then I ended up later on calling the Attorney General's office, and I was told, oh, you only have 10 days to file a complaint about the cost. So how do you get around the cost?
Depending on the particular situation, there's a friend of mine named Debbie in Austin that she's kind of the expert in that regard. So when I will get, I've gotten, your request is gonna cost $1,500. And then she'll advise me, depending on the actual request, she'll say, okay, let's pare it down and start smaller, and then see if we can get bigger. Also, they see my name, I'm gonna get charged a lot of the time.
And so I got the idea for some of the things I requested that I was being lied to, saying we don't have anything.
It's self-reporting. So for example, when I request SexEd stuff, the person in charge of SexEd is responsible for getting it. Does that make sense? There's no oversight. They're self-policing.
No oversight or monitoring.
No.
Okay. So the shack, how do you get involved or get things changed in that?
The best way to change what's happening with our shack is to change the board, because they need to change the authority of who's filling the shack and how it's running. I will say in other school districts where I've done some research, you can go to the website and it'll tell you who's on the shack. It'll give you their phone number. They want you to hold them accountable for what they're doing. We can't even figure out without an open records request who's on our shack.
And is that in any ISD?
In any ISD, if the meetings are closed, we have to do an open records request to find out who's even on the shack. We're not allowed to have contact information, and the one lady selects everybody.
Melissa, why can't you tell us the name of the one lady?
Her name is Rachel Naylor, Director of Pediatric Health.
What happened is we slammed the shack. It's what we did back in 16, and we had, what did we have there, Patrick? I don't know.
30 is what I heard.
30 to 50 people, something like that, and we slammed it, and the district just went, and just, everything was silent, everything went silent. Now the other way you can get on there is pretend to be their ally, and hang out with the Planned Parenthood people and what have you, and they'll plug you in right away.
Yeah.
And then, flip.
That's current. Hopefully, then we don't have to do that much longer, but that is the only way you can get in right now, and you still might not get in.
The last comment I have is, I saw there about the UT health science. Do you know who the head of that is?
Patrick can talk about that.
Okay. Okay, well, I was gonna add to that. I've had an experience with her.
Okay, yeah, I'll let Patrick do that.
I was trying to look at the map, it starts similar, that's my new home was just, my new was by.
That's not Northeast ISD, is it?
No.
No.
It's
So you wanna go back to this map?
State Board of Education.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, I think it's just shirts.
You had a question.
Okay, so middle school, Shirt Cibolo, I'm still trying to figure out. We've made open records requests and waiting on it, it's not readily available. And then high school, same thing, so it is something I'm trying to figure out. If you wanna email me when I figure it out, I can email you back. Yes.
First, we have to, another vote on San Antonio's K-4.
And Patrick will talk about that, actually.
Okay,
Yeah.
because,
It's important.
the state
Yeah.
is raising our children.
Yeah.
Just one last quick thing, you asked why. Listen, heard me say before, they were getting, before this administration now, they're getting $500 million a year. Just the national money, not even UN anywhere else, but for Planned Parenthood. And you've already heard they're gonna get $45, $50 million this election cycle. So if you're a business, think about it, there's two things going on. Number one is, if I can give you $50 million a year for elections, and you vote to give me $500 million a year, what a good deal. Well, 10% of that $5 million goes to offering free curriculum. So this is marketing for future people, so they're doing.
Yes, it is, yeah.
You said you had somebody for 5 and 6?
We have 2 people discerning 5, I'm pretty sure one of them is gonna do it, and we have 2 people in 6, and I'm pretty sure one's gonna do it. But if you're in either of those and you feel the Holy Spirit calling, I don't think anybody would be disappointed to have another person to talk to and decide who's more qualified, who feels more called.
Beverly, aren't you in one?
I was thinking maybe 5.
Oh, I thought you were below 60 or below 64. And we're 10.
I'm between Thousand Oaks and Wilton.
How many of y'all are disturbed by what you learned tonight? Yeah. How many of you are encouraged and motivated to do something about it? I hope so. And I hope you resolve to have the fortitude to carry it out. San Antonio Family Association, our work is in the public square to protect, defend, and promote the family. And so we'll be there to help you in these issues to make sure that we are doing what's best to protect the family, especially individuals and these young children. So let's hear a round of applause for Melissa Beckett. If you have signed up and registered in the back, then we will email you this presentation, so make sure you've registered and we'll be glad to send it to you digitally. I want to thank the Knights Columbus Council 7613 and Christopher Hall for hosting us. And here, just so you know, you can. This is a fabulous place to rent for wedding receptions, baptism receptions, any kind of reception or party, and do it. You can find it at ChristopherHall.org, right? ChristopherHall.org. Gary and Tex back there, raise your hands. Talk to them as well. Thank you, gentlemen, for hosting us. In trying to be as brief as possible, because I know they want to go home. Some things that were brought up here. May 9, 2016, this new Draw the Line, Respect the Line, SexEd, Sexual Risk Reduction program was passed. The president of the board at that point in time was a friend of mine, and I knew her fairly well, and we used to office next to each other for about 6 years. And her name is Leslie Bresnahan, and I say her name with love and respect. And she has made a decision to vote for this and push this through at the request of former Superintendent Brian Gotardi. And when we met with them, every one of them admitted to us in person that they had not read the curriculum. It's almost like you had to pass it to find out what's in it. And we've heard that on a national level. And it's bad policy, it's bad process, it's a lack of integrity. And I also had a chance to visit with her. This was before May 9, 2016. In 2014, we were standing outside providing an alternative idea and principles to women, the men and women going into the Planned Parenthood South Texas Luncheon fundraiser in 2014. And Letty came out of that fundraiser, and I had a chance to visit with her at that point in time. And I had been a couple of years since I saw her. She is now running for State Board of Education, on the Democrat ticket, and she please make a point to go and talk to her, because she should know better. She's a parishioner supposedly at Holy Spirit Catholic Parish, and she needs to help, as all of these people and Board of Trustees need help, need our prayers, as Melissa said, but we also need to engage with them and ask them, why are you voting for things and running on these policies and ideas? It's bad for the individual, it's bad for the family. She also happens to be heads up the HR department at UT Health Science Center, and she is in the continuing education for physicians department for UT Health Science Center, which is directly connected with this. Not her department, but UT Health Science Center, as you saw, has a memorandum of understanding with the school district, Northeast ISD, to have this curriculum. So what you'll find, and what we've had in the past with the board that voted on this on May 9, 2016, is that there was a lot of nepotism involved. Northeast Independent School District has a lot of money that goes around, and because of that, they have influence on the Bexar County Tax Appraisal District. They had, there's a spouse of a board member that was on the Bexar County Appraisal District. There's a spouse of a board member who's on the SHAC. There's a spouse and a father-in-law of a board member at the time who was a Bexar County judge. And there's a lot of nepotism involved, and it's time to break that up. We need people that are independent. SHAC is supposed to be represented by 50% or more of parents who have no financial connection to the Northeast Independent School District. Unfortunately, too many of the parents who are on the SHAC, Student Health Advisory Council, have a spouse who is usually employed by the Northeast Independent School District. There's too many financial connections, and we have to break that and have more independence. So, State Board of Education is going to be very important to do, and invite you to meet Ken Mercer's friend sitting next to him, Lonnie Pope, and visit with her about what's going on with that election. And the Texas Freedom Network, real quick, was started by a woman named Cecile Richards. Who knows who Cecile Richards is? She was former president, past president of Planned Parenthood International, and her mother was Governor Ann Richards. And in 1995, she saw it fit to start the Texas Freedom Network to infiltrate independent school districts, all of them over 1,000 throughout the state. And they're very much connected to this plan, to Planned Parenthood's business plan. If they can introduce and plan promiscuity, they can plan and work their business plan to make sure more unwed teen girls go have abortions. There are 3 abortion facilities in San Antonio, Texas. Planned Parenthood in South Texas happens to have 2 of them. Birth rates are down, if you didn't know, in the United States of America. Matter of fact, fertility rates are down. And it's so far down that Social Security is in jeopardy. We need population replenishment. And the only reason why the United States of America continues to grow and have sustaining economy is because we have immigration. And we wouldn't need immigration if we didn't have abortion. The independent consultants for San Antonio Metropolitan Health District for the Northeast Independent School District. Just a little background. San Antonio Metropolitan Health District is the medical director, is the former medical director of Planned Parenthood South Texas. Her name is Chi-Chi Jun-Wu. She's also still a licensed abortionist. And that's the department that had a consultant, acted as the independent consultant for Northeast Independent School District, as well as all 16 school districts in San Antonio area. Chi-Chi Jun-Wu was also approved in 2018 by the Mayor and City Council to be the local public health authority for San Antonio, Bexar County, and the surrounding counties. That means she's the local Surgeon General. There is a plan here, there is an agenda here. The elections they're coming up. This Friday, St. Valentine's Day, February 14th is the last day of filing to run for Board of Trustees. We do need people who will perform and become those trustees. And that election is May 2nd, as Melissa mentioned. On that same ballot, May 2nd, will be pre-K for SA. And pre-K for SA was voted on in 2012. It was an 8-year term. It was voted in November 2012. And instead of the November ballot here, it'll be on the May 2nd ballot because the city wanted to move it up because they're trying to pass 2 other things. There's movement to pass 2 other taxes that go on the sales tax as well. I encourage you, we have had lots of information about this, to vote against pre-K for SA. Pre-K for SA has its own board. It is not subject to the authority of the State Board of Education, has no oversight or regulation other than the City Council of San Antonio. So vote no on pre-K for SA. By the way, Texas has passed its own pre-K4 program, and now there's great overlap, and that's why you'll see the City of San Antonio talk about pre-K for 3-year-olds to try to justify to continue the program. And that was just at the District 9 Neighborhood Alliance meeting when they have a presentation about that. The next thing that they're competing with is VIA wants to have an additional tax for mobility. And there's also a move to have SAWS change part of its tax to go away from aquifer protection. So how many of you found value tonight? I hope you did. And back in the back, Melissa has tables set up where you can register for different things, including following for your interest in different things that she talked about. So it's crucial that we share this information. Don't keep it to yourself. We have posted this on Facebook Live with San Antonio Family Association, and we'll also be posting the whole video as well on our YouTube. So take it, share it with everybody else. Please go to our website, SanAntonioFamilyAssociation.com, and sign up for our emails and newsletters, and so you can keep up with what's happening. And with that, I'd like to close it after saying thank you one more time to Christopher Hall and tonight's Women's Council 7630 for hosting us. And if you would, go to your pages, and at the bottom is a prayer to complete our meeting, praying for our country, our state, our county, our city, and our independent school districts. And so let's pray together. God our Father, giver of life, we entrust the United States of America, the state of Texas, Baird County, and the city of St. Anthony to your loving care. You are the rock on which this nation was founded. You alone are the true source of our cherished rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Reclaim this land for your glory and dwell among your people. Send your Spirit to touch the hearts of our nation's leaders with an intense desire to fulfill their responsibilities that protects individuals, marriages, families, and long-term domestic prosperity. Open our public officials' minds and all people who live in America to the inestimable worth of human life and to the responsibilities that accompany human freedom. Remind your people that true happiness is rooted in seeking and doing your will. Through the intercession of your Holy Spirit, grant us the courage to reject the culture of death, indifference, communism, socialism, egalitarianism, and environmentalism, and totalitarianism. And bless us with the desire, strength, and fortitude to be courageous conduits to help bring about a new culture of life, freedom, marriage, and family. We ask your divine assistance to help us be and remain faithful to you, and for our collective petitions to your Son, Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. So thank you very much for coming. Again, my name is Patrick Landau on behalf of Mike Canufti, President of the San Antonio Family Association, and the San Antonio Family Association, and Melissa Beckett. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Ken Roach, for your great service on the State Board of Education. We look forward to many more years you've been hanging around. And thank you very much. Follow us at SanAntonioFamilyAssociation.com. Have a great night. Be safe. May God bless you.